Hello card fighters, this is VG Kitty with another deck profile. This time for post DZ set 10, I present the Hound Raisers. This doggo time, let's go right ahead. Starting with the ride line, going with the native ones since this helps guarantees pieces in hand and a body on the field. With Izumi, when it's rode upon by Hakoden, you search for a high beast in the top 7 to call it to rear, and when Hakoden searches you a Hound Raiser from the top 7 when Aobi rides on top. And of course, not gonna forget our ride deck quest for energy, obviously. And usually, you shouldn't whiff both rides unless your luck is really that bad. Whiffing Izumi is more painful since it doesn't recuperate anything, unlike Hakoden. Because if you miss a target with Hakoden's on ride skill, you can call him out to rear and Soul Charge 1 to compensate. Our boss here is Unraiser Aoi, which if I were to sum up, is old Graham Grace, but you can make a field more efficiently. You can intercept with grade 1s from the back row, and that your back row rears get power at all times. So as long as they're high beast, to be specific. Aoi's first skill gives a 5k power boost to all back row high beasts at all times. Second skill is an act to call a high beast from the deck for Soul Blast 2. And the last skill being identical to base Grand Grace, where you can CB1 to give a grade 1 high beast from in the center back row the ability to attack and restand at the end of battle. And also you can perform drive checks if your opponent is at grade 3. The goal here is to pressure with the additional swing from the center back row with a grade 1 high beast that can drive check, while making lethal swings with our best grade 3, which is Station. Here, a pretty consistent deck and also quite budget if you avoid a certain pricey PR doggo. That's it for the ride line. On to the main deck. But for grade 3s, we're running 3 main deck. Aoi for our Persona ride helps to add more pressure to our rear Hound Raisers and draws us pieces. Nothing much to expand on that, so moving on. The second and only other grade 3 is, of course, our Hound Raiser Station. 4 here. He's the only Hound Raiser to enable the defensive aspect of this deck, in which he gives all high beasts intercept and access to back row intercepting as long as he is on the front row rearguard circle. And basically being a Zamug clone, wherein if you boost him with a high beast, so he is boosted by 1, he will get plus 5k and then a battle. And if your opponent is at grade 3, you can Energy Blast 3 to give him a crit. Preferably, you would want Station to be boosted by, say, a Mail Gown, since that itself makes a 36k column with no triggers, and it will only get bigger on Persona Ride. Station is the best attacker while providing the defensive aspects. A solid grade 3 to have for the deck. I initially had him at 3 because of how much I kept seeing him, and I just didn't want to risk having too many grade 3s in him. But since with the new card, I would want to maximize him as much as possible, so I bumped him up to 4 again. That's it for our grade 3s. Let's go to our grade 2s. Starting our grade 2s with a secondary board former. We got 3 Mishiro here. A sort of Burning Horn Dragon clone, but you search out the high beast from the top 7 to add to hand, and if you whiff, you countercharge 1. Also a solid attacker when boosted by a high beast, she can get plus 10k in a battle. Optional soul charge as well if you feel necessary to refuel the soul, since Aoi does Soul Blast 2 for her superior call skill. I'd say that Mishiro's top 7 call isn't that much of a need unless you plan for a grade 2 rush. Say, because surprisingly, Hound Raisers can't afford to try a lane if given just 1 CB. I would know, ironically, from experience, since I have a friend who's consistently beaten me with his own Hound Raisers, both in remote and locals. Shout out to you, boss. Moving to the next grade 2, the previous new card from set 8, which is 3 copies of Hound Raiser Hinami. Rather interesting card since she helps power herself up and another rear guard for 5k when the high beast from the center back row attacks. And at the end of battle, that she attacks while boosted by a high beast, you can retire her and basically give a full removal protection to another Hound Raiser on rear guard, which most of the time will be Station. It's no surprise that Hound Raisers just crumble against any deck that can retire or anything that has removal. But if it's against decks that don't tire that much during the main phase, is a little more workable. Station is the priority unit to be given Hinami's resist since it lets him live a little longer so you can still guard from the back row. A pretty good card, and I do hope we get more protection enablers for Hound Raisers in future sets. Our last grade 2 is actually something I just ran as an experiment for. Now we're actually sticking to it, which is 2 main deck Hakuren, mainly just for recycling high beasts back to the deck in case the game gets dragged on and lets us not deck out faster that way. I am running an order in this build, being 3 copies of a Warrior's Rest. Cost is Energy Blast 2. Then you give 2 units a continuous skill of when they're boosted. In general, they get plus 10k. If you have 5 or more units upon activation, you draw 1 card, which is nice for filling the hand back up. This order honestly feels scary to be up against because on Persona Ride, if you play this with the likes of, say, Station and Mishiro in the front row, which already gives themselves power on attack, Station would be around 56k with a crit, Mishiro reaching 53k, and man, the power threshold can easily reach beyond 30k with these two, and also without triggers, mind you, without triggers. On non-Persona turns, the order helps a lot in reaching magic numbers, and the chances of pulling triggers with Aoi and the back row swing helps pressure the opponent even more. Really great order to have for the deck. I initially ran 4, but found it too clunky, so I bumped it down to 3. Although, of course, if I had to make space for a Regalis, I would still choose Twin Cast because it's always nice to have a Regalis you can technically activate twice. Now, we've gone through our Hound Raisers and our only order. Let's move to the grade 1s and the main stars of the deck. Starting our line of doggos, we have the card from Set 10, Viril Gown, which I've labeled as Hound Raiser's version of a main phase Sir Gown mixed with Regown. Case in point, his auto on place in general. You can look at the top 5 for a Hound Raiser, add it to hand and shuffle. If you did add a card, you choose a card from hand and put to soul. This skill honestly surprised me on testing before Set 10's physical release, since it helps search for pieces while also fueling the soul again without needing to rely on, say, Persona and Mishiro's Blind Soul Charge. It got to the point where draws actually got me closer to decking out because of how much I managed to just spam Viril Gown if I got too greedy. And his second skill is a continuous 5k shield if your Vanguard is a Hound Raiser, which makes him a 10k shield always, like Regown, but without needing to be at grade 3. It does get another 5k power boost once your opponent is at grade 3, which just makes him another 18k booster thanks to Aoi's own skill. Really solid card, and is honestly the go-to target for Hakuren's recycling more than anything. I do hope we get more high beasts in future sets, especially for a double rare, actually. Our next doggo in line is for Melgowns. He's our other resource fuel, either for energy or soul. As on place on a rear, you can either energy charge 1 or soul charge 1. More often, it's gonna be the former because you want to maximize energy for Seishin and the order. His continuous skill gives him plus 5k in the back row at all times, so also as you're on a Hound Raiser Vanguard, which makes him a good early booster if you want to pressure on grade 1 going second. He becomes an 18k booster on grade 3, and if he's on the center back row rear, he becomes a 23k booster, which makes him a solid attacker for Aoi's skill. Our next doggo is copies of Regown, our annoying little fella, because of the fact he forces 2 cards from hand to guard when he attacks, and with his attacking number of just being 13k. Also another 10k shield once we reach grade 3, but I really wish his shield was active like Viril Gown's. condition, and he would have been a better card, especially for a common as well. Our last high beast, which ironically is a Kato, which is 2 copies of Tigris, is mainly for the tanky shield. Because surprisingly, with my luck, I see him enough to still run him at just 2. And because his additional shield still works when he intercepts from the back row thanks to Seishin's skill, because the wording does say it's put on Guardian Circle. And I know y'all are wondering why I'm not running Sirgaon. Same reasons. Expensive, overrated card, and my deck works just fine without him. And I'm not really into the competitive scene as well. I'm just playing casually. And of course, we're not forgetting our 4 PGs. Always nice to have. If you have budget for Elementaria, you could, or the first version, you could replace 1 PG with it, and that's it. That's all for our normal units and normal orders. Onto our triggers. We're running 8 crits for this deck. Take full advantage of just having free drive checks per turn. Helps to make Seishin even more lethal. And we're running 3 fronts as well. I would preferably want to go for the shield fronts once I get more stable budget. Surprisingly, with Viril Gown in the deck, when I ran draws during testing, I got close to decking out around turn 5. Now for the OT, we're running red because the restanding station is always fun. You could run Cater OT here since you actually do have 1 grade 3 front row rare if you want to replenish your hand even more. Blue OT, always nice as a 9th crit and a card to hand from the drop zone. Bright Sky OT can work as well if you want some removal. Night OT as well since it's a heal and a potential call from hand. Any OT can work for Hound Raisers now that I think about it, even Albaria. It's all up to preference in the end. Ending it off with just 4 vanilla heals, although you can run 1 effect heal depending on what you have in your local meta. And that's my Hound Raiser deck for post DizineZ set 10. Really fun deck to have and actually has potential for better support. I will mention that they did get 1 common in set 10, which basically gives Station, or basically makes Station unremovable because it chooses a rear guard and your opponent cannot attack it with their rear guard until the end of their next turn. I don't run it mainly because of how much I can pressure already and that Station is not swung at often, unless it's between me and my friend at school. I'm looking at you, girl. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe for more Vanguard shenanigans. Hope y'all enjoyed this deck profile, and have a good one, folks. See y'all.